Hey guys, it's Tahi. We're going to try to knock out Forgeweaver Araz and the Soul Hunters both in this one video. If you haven't seen, I put out a video just a little bit ago for the first three bosses of Mythic. Since they were not tested on Heroic, I also went over some of the things that we saw in the normal testing to familiarize yourself with those too. But the first three bosses are in one video that I posted on the 7th as well. But let's go to Forgeweaver. So in phase one, it really doesn't feel like a lot changes, and basically all the changes that happen in this entire fight, regardless of phase, are going to come down to these collectors. You're still going to have these manifestation ads. I was listening to Max's stream. He was saying something about like these putting them under boss is something you're not going to do because it leads to a different mechanic or something like that. There's nothing in the Dungeon Journal that actually says that. Maybe I overlooked something. Obviously, Max knows a heck of a lot more than me, but something worth testing on PTR to see if he's right. And if he turns out not to be right, then just keep dropping them underneath boss, I would say. The only things that are going to be new is the people that get these manifestation dots, the damage that it does to you before it spawns is actually a lot. It is probably a personal when these spawn. I can definitely see like once all three collectors get activated, if you have a disc priest in the raid, you just drop a barrier and everyone just goes inside once you get like, the triplet drops of those manifestations to help reduce the damage. Maybe an AMZ angle as well. Something to help reduce the damage on those people along with a personal. And then the Echo still does its thing. Nothing new about the Echo. And then there's this Void Tear. It's difficult to understand what it means, but I'm pretty sure it's just like a targeted circle that goes on someone that if you're still inside it when it blows up, it just one-shots you. I don't think it's going to be Area of Denial. That seems punishing for the size of a boss room. So it's just get out of it, and that's kind of about it. When we go into the intermission, phase 2, intermission, whatever you want to call it, there's going to be these beams that still spawn that are trying to hit the center of the room here, and you use your shield ads to block them. It's called Arcane Convergence. So you don't want to kill these shield ads too quickly. You actually want them to help you with these Arcane Collectors so that the energy doesn't reach the center of the room, because if it does, it's going to be a lot of raid-wide damage. This does do taking damage to this shielded ad as well. There's also going to be beams that also happened in Heroic, but I didn't cover them, so just targeted beams, just step out of them. Very simple. And then the biggest question about this phase is these collectors, when they die, after 3 seconds after they die, they do like 10.6 million damage or something to the entire raid, which kind of means you can survive one, but you can't survive two. So one of two things is going to happen. One, you're going to have to kill one at a time, take the damage, heal up, then kill a second, take the damage, heal up, do the same with the third, and then you go into your damage phase. Or you're going to have to kill all three simultaneously, because it takes 3 seconds before the damage goes off, and the cast time of this boss, when all three have died and he goes into his damage amp, is actually 3 seconds. So to me, that sounds like you're cutting it really, really close. Maybe the damage won't go off as soon as all three die, because maybe that just signals to the code or whatever that this phase is now over, so that this is no longer a mechanic that can occur or something along those lines. I'm not really sure. It's one of the biggest question marks of the site when it comes to raid testing. And then last phase, kind of the same thing. The only thing that's going to happen that's new is this new ability called Death Throws, which is a knockback, which means you're going to tank the boss not all the way against the entrance door, but somewhere probably around here. So that way when you get knocked back, you don't get knocked back towards the black hole, you get knocked back towards the door. That's probably what you're going to want to do, which means you're going to be in a constant struggle as a raid to not go on the left, right side of the boss and definitely fall behind the boss. You're definitely always going to want to be here, which means melee are probably going to be your strongest for this part of the fight. But for the other parts of the fight, your dot classes are probably going to be stronger. So you're going to need... They did a really good job, I think, in trying to balance out like who's going to be really good damage for this fight for different parts of the fight. So don't have too many question marks about this. Again, the biggest things is what Max said about these manifestations. See if that's correct, what this Void Tear is going to do. Hopefully it's not Area Denial. And then how do you kill these collectors to try to completely not take on that damage once they die. So, but let's go to Soul Hunters. So Soul Hunters, there are basically one change per boss for this fight. For Adaris, it's going to be this Eradicate. He basically makes a shadow of himself, and it says it goes behind targets, and then basically charges and does a lot of damage to them. It doesn't say if it targets a player or anything, which is what I'm curious about, or if it's just going to be completely random. And it does sound like he hits like a truck. So hopefully, I assume it's going to be targeted. Otherwise, how else are you going to know? And if you definitely get targeted with this and you have the consume, it was 100% whatever the strongest personal you have available. That, or you're going to have to be calling for externals on those players to help them stay alive, especially if they're at higher stacks. But I could definitely see, like, whenever this happens, you dispel those people. So that way the dot is taking the least amount as it possibly can, so that they're in no danger of taking this with a combination of that dot tick and just immediately falling over. So for Velarin, she does multiple hunts in a row. I assume it's going to be 3, which means, like you watched the heroic videos that I made, there's a debuff that you can't soak another hunt for 8 seconds after soaking another. So I assume it's going to be something like this. And if you want to min-max so that, you know, when she ends her hunt, she ends up back at all the other 2 bosses, that's kind of like what this diagram is for. That is very min-maxy. I would not recommend that on PTR testing. Just do the mechanic correctly. You're definitely going to have to figure out some way to organize your groups so that you have an even split of all of these hunts. And the way I think it's going to work is it's going to target 3 players all at once, but there's going to be, you know, when we go live, it's going to be a weak core that tells you, like, I'm first, you're second, this person's third. But you're going to have to figure out in PTR testing how to do this, obviously, without the weak aura for the majority of groups, so that you can do this without wiping the entire raid. I am very curious if, like, spell warding or something like that works for an ability like this. We can actually check it real quick to see. Blah. I don't think it says anything about if it fails to hit X amount of players, then it does something else. It does not. So there's an option for you as well. Obviously, you're not going to be able to spell ward every single one, but maybe it's an immunity angle, maybe it's a spell ward angle, something like that to ease this mechanic as well. So and then we go to Alyssa. She just does Sigil of Chains, which it says it does it on her current target, which is going to be a tank. So, you know, the tank just basically doesn't put it where the rest of the raid is going to be, and it should be a non-factor for everyone else. It does do a slow, but Freedom, Tiger's Lust, all those things should probably stop that from occurring. The Mythic changes for the intermission. So I misspoke in my other videos about this tether. Apparently it's a Mythic only mechanic. I swore, 2 weeks ago it showed up in the Heroic Journal as well. Sorry, my dog's playing with the toy behind me, so that's what that ruffling is going to be. But let's go over all 3 of the different intermissions that can occur to this black hole. You get tethered. I assume it's going to be 5 players tethered together. They can't run more than 15 yards apart. And I assume what you're going to do is essentially you're going to assign, like, a square pattern of quadrants so that everyone has their own quadrant that they have to soak for these fragments. So, anything that comes into, like, this pink square is these 5 people's job, and so on and so forth. That's kind of my immediate thought of how to do this. Not 100% sure, but for PTR testing, I think this will get you by and get you through this phase pretty darn well. So, for the Velarin intermission, she still does these charges, but we're also still tethered together, so you can't go too far away or you're going to get snapped back to your friends, which means you have to somehow do all of these Kayaveza-like lines in a coordinated way with also not snapping back to the rest of your team. So good luck with that. This very much to me seems kind of like a YOLO angle. So do your best that you can. Try not to get each other killed. For the sake of testing, I would definitely use a strong personal so that if you do get snapped back, hopefully you don't get one shot by one of your friends' lines. And then for the intermission from Alyssa, I did find footage about what this jump is going to look like. I only found one clip, but I'm pretty sure it targets the farthest group or person away from her. So if you have, let's say the entire raid here, but you have one group all the way back here, she will more than likely target the furthest away group rather than the closer group to her. And then once she does this jump, she's going to do a frontal that points at the entire center of the room. I assume it's the center of the room. It could also be like, the biggest stack point of players. So if there's 5 players in the center of the room versus Raid right here, maybe instead she will actually turn her frontal so it actually goes this way instead. I'm not sure, but that's something that maybe you saw in Heroic yourself, or you're just going to have to figure out. I did say in my first Heroic video about this that like this fight really seems like it could be a mechanical overlap of pretty terrible situations, and Mythic very much still gives me that vibe. The Heroic timings didn't really do that, but with how some of these abilities are working out, especially with the tether, if we were to get basically a intermission where 2 of these guys go into metamorphosis and you have to do with 2 different intermissions at the same time, that sounds like a really fun boss fight, but also really, really difficult to handle. But it is the 5th boss of the raid, so you can expect somewhere between decently difficult and not too bad. So anyways, that's going to do it for this video. I think I covered all of my thoughts for this boss, and for Forgeweaver as well. The raid plans will be in the description of the video. Thank you for watching, guys, and have a good one. Good luck on testing.